Bhakti-yoga Bhakti-vedanta Swami Saraswati Gauravani Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Radha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So last part number 4 of Prahlada's teachings. They're basically mainly the prayers he then offers to Nrsimhadev, but actually before that he's still again instructing his father. You will be surprised. So what happened last time? We heard he was instructing his schoolmates, right? So then, of course, his preaching was actually effective. They were becoming devotees. And this is a big problem in families of demons. They don't like at all that the children suddenly become devotees. So obviously the teachers became very alarmed because the first time Hiranyakashipu found out that Prahlada was having a different philosophy. You remember, he asked him, what is the best thing you have learned? And there he already told him, you're in the dark well, give it up, go to the forest. He didn't like that. So he thought that the teachers were at fault, and they promised we will educate him. And now, even worse, now the other children became influenced. So they became very, very much afraid, and they informed Hiranyakashipu. Something is happening here, we don't know why, how, because it's not our fault, but he is influencing everybody in the class like that. So then Hiranyakashipu became furious, and he called Prahlada and he chastised him, and because Prahlada remained very undisturbed, Hiranyakashipu became even more angry, and he asked him, how is it possible that you are defying my authority? Because I'm the most powerful person in the universe, and who are you? You know, so the question was, where do you get this strength? Right? So that is now the first teaching of Prahlada. Here, this is the verse. Na kevalam me bhavatrascharajan savai balam balinam chaparesham pare varemi stirajam gama ye brahmana yo yena vasham pranita. Which means, my dear king, the source of my strength, of which you are asking, is the source also of yours. This is already too much. Indeed, the original source of all kinds of strength is one. He's not only your strength or mine, but the only strength for everyone. Without him, no one can get any strength. Whether moving or not moving, superior or inferior, everyone, including Lord Brahma, is controlled by the strength of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then Prabhupada in the purport, he says that Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 10:41, he says to Arjuna that you should know that all beautiful, glorious and mighty creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. And this is confirmed by Prahlada Maharaj. If one sees extraordinary strength or power anywhere, it is derived from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To give an example, there are different rays of fire, but all of them derive heat and light from the sun. Similarly, all living entities, big or small, are dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's some incense burning. Can you?
Yes, yes, of course.
is enough because I thought it's hot, but it's not as hot as I thought. Anyway, so the point is, of course, here we can give a whole class about that. But we all should know, and this is, of course, a very important point, that anybody who has any talent, any type of power, whether physical or political even, any ability, we should know that it's behind that it's Krishna, and he can take it away at any time. And that we can observe, and we have observed, of course, in history many, many times. And Hiranyakashipu is one prime example, that he, and Bali Maharaj also, they both were actually Vishvajit. Jit means to conquer, and Vishva is the universe. So they conquered the whole universe. But at one particular point, all the power was taken away. And so that can happen to anybody, whether it's just by old age, by time, by disease. Parkinson, for example, one may be very powerful, like Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, the world champion of heavyweight, and 60 years ago, 1964. And then he developed that disease, and he couldn't practically hold a cup of tea anymore. And before he had big arms and punch somebody and they just drop on the floor. And then you're not able to hold a small cup of tea. Because the strength is given and it's taken. So that was the first lesson he tells him, and he continues now in the same vein, Prahlada Maharaj. He says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the supreme controller and time factor, is the power of the senses, the power of the mind, the power of the body, and the vital force of the senses. His influence is unlimited. He's the best of all living entities, the controller of the three modes of material nature. And by his own power, he creates this cosmic manifestation, maintains it, and annihilates it also. Okay. My dear Father, please give up your demoniac mentality. Do not discriminate in your heart between enemies and friends. Make your mind equipoised toward everyone. Except for the uncontrolled and misguided mind, there is no enemy within this world. When one sees everyone on the platform of equality, one then comes to the position of worshipping the Lord perfectly. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, unless one is able to fix the mind at the lotus feet of the Lord, the mind is impossible to control. And Arjuna says that to Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, Chanchala Himana Krishna, that the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, very strong, more difficult to control than the wind. And the only bona fide process for controlling the mind is to fix it on the service of the Lord. And we create enemies and friends in the mind according to our perception of things. But actually there are no enemies and friends. He already told that his classmates the same instruction he had gotten from Narada Muni. And then Prabhupada says, and he quotes Bhagavad Gita, Samak Sarveshu Bhuteshu Matbhaktim Lavate Param, that to understand this is the preliminary condition for entering into the kingdom of devotional service. So unless one comes to that point, actually devotional service cannot be properly performed. So then he said, in former times there were many fools like you who did not conquer the 6 enemies that steal away the wealth of the body. These fools were very proud, thinking, I've conquered all enemies in all the 10 directions. But if a person is victorious over the 6 enemies, which means lust, anger, greed, like that, and is equipoised of all living entities, for him there are no enemies. Enemies are merely imagined by one in ignorance. in the purport, Prabhupada says, in this material world, everyone thinks that they have conquered the enemies, not understanding that his enemies are the uncontrolled mind and 5 senses. In this material world, everyone has become a servant of the senses. Originally, everyone is a servant of Krishna. But in ignorance, one forgets this, and thus one is engaged in the circle of Maya through lust, desires, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and jealousy. Everyone is actually dependent on the reactions of material laws, but still one thinks himself independent and thinks that he has conquered all directions. In conclusion, one who thinks that he has many enemies is an ignorant person, whereas one who is in Krishna consciousness knows there are no enemies, but those within himself, the uncontrolled mind and senses. So, these were a few verses which were actually Prahlada Maharaj is instructing Hiranyakashipu again. Basically, about that he's not the most powerful person. And now, of course, Hiranyakashipu was so furious that he wants to kill him. And that's, we all know the story. Then he, punches the pillar, the Shingadev comes out, rips him apart, like that, and then all the associates attack the other demons. There's a huge kind of war, one against everybody else. But Nrsimhadev has many arms and many weapons, so he cuts them all to pieces. And even after everybody is done, is finished, all the demons are dead, he's still very angry. And nobody dares to approach him. So that's the next situation. So then, as we know, Brahma asks Prahlada that please go, because it's your fault that he's like this. You are responsible. So you have to now do something because nobody else can pacify him. So here we have Prahlada coming to the Lord, and he falls down at his lotus feet, and Nrsimhadev immediately changes. And he becomes a pussycat. Puts his hand on his head and all these nice things. And it is said that because of being personally touched by the Lord, Prahlada Maharaj immediately achieved the Brahma Gyan, spiritual knowledge. And thus he offered his prayers to the Lord in full spiritual knowledge and full devotional ecstasy. And they're not just sentimental prayers that, oh, you are so great and I'm your servant, which is of course all true, but there's a lot of instructions, and as we know, Prabhupada quotes many, very often from the prayers of Prahlada Maharaj, because there's so much knowledge and good advice included. So we'll go through a few of them only, because there's not time for everything. Let's start with this one. I will even skip the Sanskrit. Prahlada Maharaj prayed. First of all, being very humble, he says, how is it possible for me, who has been born in a family of Asuras, to offer suitable prayers to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Even until now, all the demigods headed by Lord Brahma and all the saintly persons could not satisfy the Lord by streams of excellent words, although such persons are very qualified, being in the mode of goodness. Then what is to be said of me? I'm not at all qualified. Do you have a Russian Bhagavatam? Because it's just going to be translations, mostly, of the 7th canto.
Take my mobile phone.
Yes, 7th canto, chapter 9. And this was number 8. So, 7-9, that's the prayers of Prahlada Maharaj.
Which was it?
This is 8. This was 8.
9-8.
7-9-8. Oh, I can go. Everybody has the phone and looks at the prayers. Huh?
I didn't download the app.
That's not my fault. But we'll get you the app. Okay, I will continue because of time. This is the next one. Actually, very nice picture of Nisringadevi and Singhachalam with the Sandesh outfit.
From this year?
Huh?
From this year?
No.
Welcher Vers?
798. Jetzt kommt 7911. Now we have 7911. This is an example Prabhupada also quotes very often, as you will see. The Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always fully satisfied in himself. Therefore, when something is offered to him, the offering by the Lord's mercy is for the benefit of the devotee. For the Lord does not need service from anyone. And now comes the example. To give an example, if one's face is decorated, the reflection of one's face in a mirror is also seen to be decorated. Very clear? You serve the Lord, he becomes happy, then you become happy. So, if one, or sometimes when you decorate the deity and the altar and everything, ultimately it's for your benefit because the Lord doesn't need your service. He is self-satisfied. A little bit of water. The limitation of the old voice. This is 7911. Okay. Thank you, it's warm. That's very considerate because cold water is like it's making it worse. I always only take hot water practically. So that's clear, huh? I think very nice example of the mirror. And now we have the next one. And this is the one, I think, which I mentioned yesterday. We'll see. My Lord Nisringadeva, O Supreme, because of the bodily conception of life, embodied souls neglected and not cared for by you cannot do anything for their betterment. Whatever remedies they accept, although perhaps temporarily beneficial, are certainly impermanent. And now come the example. That's 19. For example, a father and mother cannot protect their child. A physician and medicine cannot relieve a suffering patient. An abode on the ocean cannot protect a drowning man. And now we'll read from the purport. Because, yeah, I mean, that doesn't seem to make sense. Because, yes, medicine and doctors can alleviate suffering from the patient. We know this, we go to the dentist or we take some, aspirin even just to relieve a headache, and it works. And if somebody is drowning, if the boat picks him up and is saved. So let's see what this means. So Prabhupada explains, through parental care, through remedies for different kinds of disease, and through means of protection on the water, in the air, and on land, there's always an endeavor for relief from various kinds of suffering in the material world. And now comes the main point. But none of them are guaranteed measures for protection. They're measures, but not guaranteed. They may be beneficial temporarily, but they afford no permanent benefit. You know, sometimes the example is the blowing on the boil. You may have some pain, you know, the boil, and then you can alleviate that by blowing on it or putting ice or whatever you want. But that doesn't solve the root problem. So therefore, yes, one may take some medicine or this and that, and there's some temporary relief. But the root problem is then the material body, the cycle of birth and death. So we continue with the purport. Despite the presence of father and mother, a child cannot be protected from, I think that was the first one. Let's see. I want to go through this. So this is the patient. Okay, we have the patient. Now come, they all have to come together with the text. Despite the presence of, this is the child. The presence of father and mother, a child cannot be protected from accidental death, disease, and various other miseries. No one can help, including the parents. This is the situation. Ultimately, the shelter is the Lord, and one who takes shelter of the Lord is protected. This is guaranteed, as the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 9:31. Kaunteya pratijanihi namedakta pranashati. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Therefore, unless one is protected by the mercy of the Lord, no remedial measure can act effectively. One should consequently depend fully on the causeless mercy of the Lord. And here we have again this, we call it a caveat. Yes, but. That doesn't mean that you don't try in the remedial measure and just leave it up. If the Lord wants, you know, people who don't take any medicine. Well, if the Lord wants me to be cured, I will be cured. No, the Lord has arranged for a doctor and this and that. You have to take advantage. Don't be a fool. No? So one has to balance this. And now comes the next one. Although as a matter of routine duty, one must of course accept other remedial measures. That's the point. No one can protect one who is neglected by the personality of Godhead. So in this material world, everyone is trying to counteract the onslaught of material nature, but everyone is ultimately fully controlled by material nature. This is, of course, one example. We have volcanoes, and now we have inundations in the south of Germany. We have earthquakes, like last year in Turkey, I think, and so many people die. So material nature, climate change, even by heat now people die. Anyway. So, and here we have now, yes, this is typical, this could come now from Bavaria. So this is happening. And so therefore, even though so-called philosophers and scientists try to surmount the onslaught of material nature, they have not been able to do so. We're trying so many different measures, but ultimately you cannot, how can you counteract an inundation or a volcano? It's not possible. Or even drought. Then they think, oh, we can invent some missiles with some chemicals and we shoot them in the sky and then they disperse this and then clouds will form and rain will fall. No. Maybe some few drops. Then they think, oh, it will work. We're working on it. We'll develop a new model and then next time the clouds will be bigger and there will be a little more rain. Then you shoot a missile for €500,000, which will produce half a liter of rain. What's the point? So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that the real suffering of the material world are four: janma, birth, that we, well, people try to avoid it. It's suffering, either for the child or the parents, both. Then you have mrityu, you have death, you have jara, old age. Ask me, ask Maharaja. Yeah, we are ready to testify. True swear, I tell the truth. Yeah, vyadi, disease, who doesn't have, I can also testify. Anyway, so in the history of the world, no one has been successful in, oops, I have to go back here, in conquering these miseries imposed by material nature. Nature, Prakriti, is so strong that no one can overcome her stringent laws. Then we have so-called scientists, philosophers, religionists, politicians. Now it's Prabhupada's advice. They should therefore conclude that they cannot offer facilities to the people in general. They should make vigorous propaganda to awaken the populace and raise them to the platform of Krishna consciousness. Our humble attempt is to propagate the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. So to understand, the only remedy that one can bring about a peaceful and happy life is through Krishna consciousness. We can never be happy without the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And if we keep displeasing the Supreme Father, we shall never be happy within this material world in either the upper or lower planetary systems. Yeah, it doesn't matter where you go. Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Puna Vaikuno Arjuna, Krishna says, you can go to the highest or to the lowest planet, everywhere the same problem. Punajanma, repeated birth and death. Okay, then we have the next verse by Prahlada. This is about this example. In the material world, every living entity desires some future happiness, which is exactly like a mirage in the desert. Where is water in the desert? In other words, where is happiness in this material world? As for this body, what is its value? It's merely a source of various diseases. The so-called philosophers, scientists and politicians know this very well, but nonetheless they aspire for temporary happiness. Happiness is very difficult to obtain, but because they are unable to control their senses, they run after so-called happiness of the material world and never come to the right conclusion. I mean,
Maharaja, which verse you have to change?
Oh, I'm 25. Sorry, I have to remember to announce it. Because it's not, one after the other. Yeah, I mean, these are just a few pictures from especially Asian countries, as you can tell. But in the West, we're not very different. Rush hour anywhere in the world, and everybody's running. Prabhupada used to call it the dog race on 4 wheels. Running like anything, because it's like going after the carrot. And you try, next step I'll have it, and you never get it. So it's an elusive, called elusive happiness. Next, no, this is, it's 45 is the next one. This is one of those verses nobody likes to hear. I will hear it anyway. La vida let's see the English here. Sex life is compared to the rubbing of 2 hands to relieve an itch. Grihambedis, so-called grihastas, who have no spiritual knowledge, think that this itching is the greatest platform of happiness, although actually it is a source of distress. I remember Prabhupada just said that, we all have experience from itches, and then you scratch it. And in the beginning, it looks like, oh, this feels good. But it doesn't go away. So then you continue scratching. And then, I just will imitate Prabhupada the way he said it. You scratch and scratch and scratch, and then he says, and blood will come. Ultimately, you can't continue scratching for long. Then, there will be blood, an open wound, and you don't even touch it. It will be very painful. Anyway, So this is Prahlad Maharaj, 5 years old. He has heard from Narada Muni, therefore he can speak about that. Otherwise, a 5-year-old boy has no idea about sex at all. So the Kripanas, the fools who are just the opposite of Brahmanas, are not satisfied by repeated sensuous enjoyment. And especially here we have a good example that maybe anywhere in Cologne, you know, how do you call them here? La tercera edad. La tercera edad. Ja, die Senioren, ne? Das dritte Alter.
In Deutsch dritte.
Jugend.
Deutsch sprechen.
Anyway, third age, no, how does it say in English?
Es gibt einen Ausdruck, aber ich kann ihn nicht.
Yeah. The senior citizens, they still like to do this, you know, so fools and rascals, they are called Kripanas, the fools and rascals. So then those who are Dhira, and this is from Prabhupada's Hearing Krishna Meditation album in Germany, 1974, about a week from now, 50 years. This is exactly in June 674. So the Dhiras who are sober and tolerate this itching are not subjected to the sufferings of fools and rascals. Very heavy verse. Okay, let's go on.
Which verse?
It's 43. We go a little bit back here. O best of the great personalities, I am not at all afraid of material existence, for wherever I stay, I am fully absorbed in thoughts of your glories and activities. My concern is only for the fools and rascals who are making elaborate plans for material happiness and maintaining their families, societies and countries. I am simply concerned with love for them. We make so big arrangements to somehow get a little bit of enjoyment. So then the next one is 44, also often quoted. My dear Lord Nrsingadev, I see that there are many saintly persons indeed, but they are interested only in their own deliverance. Not caring for the big cities and towns, they go to the Himalayas or the forest to meditate with vows of silence, Mauna Vrata. They are not interested in delivering others. As for me, however, I do not wish to be liberated alone, leaving aside all these poor fools and rascals. I know that without Krishna consciousness, without taking shelter of your lotus feet, one cannot be happy. Therefore, I wish to bring them back to the shelter at your lotus feet. 51. Actually, this is the end of my selection of prayers. Now, Narada Muni, he continues to speak and he says, Nrsingadev now is pacified by Prahlad. And the Lord gives up his anger. And he's very kind to Prahlad, who was offering obeisances at his lotus feet. And then Nrsingadev speaks. And he says, and this is 52, my dear Prahlad, most gentle one, best of the family of Asuras, all good fortune unto you. I'm very much pleased with you. It is my pastime to fulfill the desires of all living beings, and therefore you may ask from me any benediction that you desire to be fulfilled. And now the reply of Prahlad Maharaj will be another teaching to us. This is 10.1. So Narada Muni says, although Prahlad Maharaj was only a boy, when he heard the benedictions offered by Lord Nrsingadev, he considered them impediments on the path of devotional service. Thus he smiled very mildly and spoke as follows. And this is now 10.2. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, because I was born in an atheistic family, I'm naturally attached to material enjoyment. Therefore, kindly do not tempt me with these illusions. I'm very much afraid of material conditions and I desire to be liberated from materialistic life. It is for this reason that I have taken shelter of your lotus feet. 10.7. O my Lord, best of the givers of benediction, if you at all want to bestow a desirable benediction upon me, then I pray from your Lordship that within the core of my heart there be no material desires. That's it. That's a bona fide.
Is dat even het Om wat die
Nee.
willen zingen?
Nee. That is from the... but the other one is similar, where he prays also that please rip out all our, the karmashayan, the desire for fruitive activity in the material world. So, yeah, it's the same idea. And of course, this corresponds to Lord Chaitanya's prayer, Nadanang Nadanang Nasundaring Savitamba Jagavisha Kamali, that I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, the only thing I want is your devotional service. So basically this is also Prahlada Maharaja's prayer. Then this is 14. Nisingadev now responds and he tells him and practically to all of us, one who always remembers your activities and my activities also, and who chants the prayers you have offered, becomes free in due course of time from the reactions of material activities. So that's like a blessing, a benediction for all devotees who chant the prayers of the 7th canto. And the next one is from 41, I think. 41, I think, yeah. Those who follow your example, I hope, maybe it could be in the same one, I don't have that. But those who follow your example will naturally become my pure devotees. You are the best example of my devotee and others should follow in your footsteps. Now in the purport, is it 41? Then it's 14.
14?
Well, it could be 14 or 41. Purport Prabhupada says, in this connection, Srila Madhvacharya quotes a verse from the Skanda Purana. You have that? Then, yes?
Not the verse.
Well, it should be either in 14 or 41, I don't know. So he quotes a verse. Actually, it's 2 verses. I just give the translation. There are many, many devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they have been enumerated in Srimad Bhagavatam 6.320 as follows: Swayambhu Narada Shanya, etc. Of the 12 authorized devotees, Lord Brahma, Narada, Lord Shiva, Kapila, Manu, and so on, Prahlada Maharaj is understood to be the best example. No, we're not very much maybe conscious of that. Yeah, that's from the Skanda Purana, where it says Prahlada Uttama Komu. He's actually the best. And now we come to the end. Oh, this is the end. Here's Prahlada, and he's the best of all the devotees. Okay, I thought it would take longer. We're good. It's only 1919. So either there's some comment or question, or we have time for the prayer by Bhakti-yoga Thakur. Depends. Yeah, we're good. We still have 10 minutes. Okay. So then we can do this one. This is from Navadvip Bhavataranga, and we may want to hear the translation before we sing this. He's praying to Nrisingadeva for protection. And within my wicked, sinful heart, the 6 enemies headed by lust perpetually reside, as well as duplicity, the desire for fame, and sheer cunning. At the lotus feet of Lord Nrisinga, I hope that He will mercifully purify my heart and give me the desire to serve Lord Krishna. Weeping, I will beg at the lotus feet of Lord Nrisinga for the benediction of worshipping Radha and Krishna in Navadvip, perfectly safe and free from all difficulties. When will this Lord Hari, whose terrible form strikes fear into fear itself, ever become pleased and show me His mercy? Even though Lord Nrisinga is terrifying toward the sinful souls, He offers great auspiciousness unto the devotees of Lord Krishna headed by Prahlada Maharaj. When will He be pleased to speak words of compassion unto me, a worthless fool, and thereby make me fearless? He will say...
Maybe we should put the translation.
Yeah, a little late, but better late than never. He will say, dear child, reside here without anxiety in Sri Gauranga Dham. May you worship the divine couple nicely, and may you develop loving attachment for their holy names. By the mercy of my devotees, all obstacles are cast far away. With a purified heart, just perform the worship of Radha and Krishna, for such worship overflows with sweet nectar. Saying this, when will that Lord in great delight place His own divine lotus feet on my head? Then I will experience sublime love for the divine couple Radha and Krishna and undergo the ecstatic transformations called satvika. Falling on the ground, I will roll about at the door of Sri Nrisinga's temple. Okay, so let's see. Just forget about this. Radha No more words, basically. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
3 questions after half. Jai. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.